Good afternoon. Welcome. Please have a seat. Make yourselves at home. Thank you for being here for this great event. Welcome to Women Against Abuse's 10th annual iPledge campaign. My name is Bill Henley. I'm meteorologist at NBC 10, part of the First Alert Weather Team, and it's my honor to serve as your master of ceremonies again this year. And I want to thank you all for being here to mark this special occasion. We're marking the 30th anniversary of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we're also celebrating the 10th anniversary of Women Against Abuse's iPledge event. The iPledge Challenge, yeah, absolutely. For 10 years, the iPledge Challenge has challenged members of our community to get involved to end domestic violence. Our speakers today, they're going to challenge us to dismiss the notion that domestic violence is a women's issue and instead recognize that it is a threat to public health and safety, and it is something that affects us all. They're also going to fill us in on a remarkable new approach that they're taking. It's coming to shape in Philadelphia that aims to end the violence once and for all. And it's a collaborative approach. So no doubt they're going to invite us to get involved as well. We want to invite you to stop by if you haven't done it already. Verizon Mobile Challenge Center, the tables you see set up here, we want you to stop by and take the iPledge Challenge. And you can also get information on how to download the iPledge Toolkit so you can live the pledge every day of the year. So we've got a lot to get to, so let's get started. It's my honor now to introduce to you the Executive Director and the President of Women Against Abuse, Janine Letitsky.
Hey there, good afternoon everyone and welcome. Wonderful to see you all. This month also marks the 30th anniversary of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's a time to remember victims, also a time to celebrate survivors. And it's a time to mobilize our community in the effort to end this public health epidemic. This impacts 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and half of transgender individuals. Domestic Violence Awareness Month actually began as a day of unity. And we have seen that when working together, we can accomplish exponentially more. We are proud to commemorate our 10th anniversary of the great iPledge campaign. This campaign has really offered you, the community, a platform to raise awareness to the significance of this issue and to also help to mobilize our community to take action. And today, we are incredibly grateful to see the progress we've made together, engaging nearly 80 stakeholders in the transformative work that is occurring through Shared Safety, Philadelphia's response to relational violence. The roots of violence occur in the home, in front of our children, and manifest later in schools, in shootouts on the streets, in the murders of entire families, even in mass shootings and acts of terror. And in many recent cases, the violence we've witnessed wreaking havoc on our nation has been steeped in a history of family violence. Domestic violence has significant consequences right here in Philadelphia. The police respond to more than 100,000 emergency 911 calls that are domestic in nature each year. And an estimated 2,000 emergency room visits are caused by attacks by an intimate partner. And 18 people ranging from the age of 86 to a 1-year-old baby were murdered last year due to domestic violence. This is an atrocity. It weighs on our hearts, on our minds, and on our souls, and it demands change. But when it comes to change, it's crucial to understand that domestic violence is not always a standalone problem. It's intertwined with co-occurring and exacerbating factors. And in Philadelphia, the rippling impact of abuse reaches much further than homes to plague our emergency rooms, our courts, our prisons, psychiatric units, schools, and shelters. To overcome an issue this expansive requires a coordinated community response with the collaboration of not only law enforcement, but all of our health and human service agencies, providers, and every single person in this community. One of the goals of shared safety is to ensure that regardless of where a victim enters the system, that they're going to be linked to the appropriate resources, and they're also going to receive an immediate supportive response. And another goal, equally important, is to build effective interventions for people who are acting abusively, who want to change their behavior. Because we recognize that to prevent relational violence, we must be providing alternatives to violence. There has been no other major United States city with a plan at the scale and depth that shared safety advances. Philadelphia is leading the way. In closing, I want to thank the many policymakers and city leaders in attendance today, the Women Against Abuse staff and all of our board members, our domestic violence partner agencies, and community partners for being part of this transformational work. And I promise not to take up minutes thanking people individually, but I need to acknowledge Verizon, who has been our founding sponsor and stood by us for 10 years now to make this possible so that we all have a place to talk about this issue and to mobilize. I also want to thank Bill Henley, NBC 10, for coming out and for being a support for so many years. We're grateful for your leadership and your commitment. And it's now my honor to introduce to you Joan Ernie, who is the CEO of Community Behavioral Health, which along with DBH IDS is the co-backbone organization leading and coordinating the shared safety effort alongside Women Against Abuse. Please welcome Joan Ernie.
Good afternoon. What a beautiful day we have for such a special occasion. As Janine indicated, I'm Joan Ernie. I'm here on behalf of David Jones, the Commissioner for the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. As Janine pointed out, we are really in a very strong and long partnership with Janine and the rest of our stakeholders to really try to make a significant difference around domestic violence and shared safety. Obviously, in our current past couple of months, we have been faced with tremendous violence, tremendous challenges, and so it makes it even more imperative that us as a department and us as a city recognize that our opportunity is to do something particularly strong here in Philadelphia. We are not going to be, I think, absent of the challenges that other cities and communities face. And so it makes it even more imperative, certainly for the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, to think about a vision that is really starting with early children, young children who may be faced with trauma and being witness to domestic violence and other trauma, and understand what that means for their future life here in Philadelphia. The impact of shared safety for me personally has been an awakening, and for our organization, that we saw ourselves as somewhat distinct and a different part of the human services rubric. And what we understand is that we all have to come together to make this significant difference, and how we in behavioral health can intervene, understand, and impact domestic violence and the trauma that it wroughts on our families and our community. We can, in fact, in partnership, change that trajectory. I really want to thank Janine. Her leadership has been outstanding. Her staff have really been the focus, and they have been our heart of trying to make this significant difference. I also certainly want to recognize the city leadership, the fact that the mayor, Brian, and Eva Gladstein, who I've had a chance to work with closely, are getting recognized, the city's commitment. They're in it with us. And then I think in closing, I think we are looking forward to how we can successfully even further impact and make Philadelphia an unbelievably successful city for our children, for our women, for our men, and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Joan Ernie, CEO of Community Behavioral Health. We're so pleased you're here today. We're so lucky to have the support of so many. She mentioned Mayor Kenny is here. He's going to speak in just a bit. Sheriff Jewel Williams is here. Sheriff, thank you for being here to mark this important occasion. And of course, we're all here to help our community as a whole, and specifically those women who are in need. It's my honor now to introduce to you Chandra Mobley. Chandra will be sharing her story of survival with us today. Please welcome Chandra Mobley.
Good afternoon. My ex-partner, Rodney, was always the life of the party. He could talk his way around anything. But people never saw what he was really like after a night of drugs and alcohol. I never knew whether I would be dealing with crack cocaine, alcohol, or pills when he walked through the door each night. Our friends and family didn't know about the abuse or his constant need to control me. Rodney said he would get fired if I pressed charges for the bruises and injuries, and we needed his insurance that came with his job. Living with him, I felt like a prisoner. After years of dealing with the abuse that no one knew about, the truth about our relationship became public on the day of my son's high school graduation. It was a great day for me, seeing my son walk across the stage to receive his high school diploma. I wasn't paying my husband my ex-partner any mind that day, and he grew aggravated as I text my family and friends. It wasn't about him that day, it was about my son. The next thing I know, he punched me in the face. With my head spinning, I called my adult son to help me file for a protection against abuse order. I was putting ice on my face and I heard my neighbors shouting. My son and Rodney were fighting in the street. Rodney ended up face down in the street and claimed I was to blame. He told the police I was crazy, I had mental health problems, I was scared, angry, and humiliated all at the same time. Rodney was always able to manipulate the facts, even talking around my 911 calls. The police took his word over mine. They didn't see the bedroom door. He kicked in a rampage to hurt me. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was arrested and taken to jail. When I was released 2 days later, Rodney threatened to press charges if I didn't go back to him. I couldn't let him ruin my son's chances of a full and happy life. I would go back for 1 year. I told him to get clean, but that never happened. In fact, Rodney's addiction and abusive behavior spilling over from our home into a local hospital where I was having surgery. Rodney would visit me there after work smelling of alcohol. I remember the troubled looks on the nurses' faces when he would visit me with his feet up on my bed, sleeping off his hangover. He grew agitated when they asked him to leave. He stalked me with nonstop calls and texts. My doctor saw what was happening, and she would not release me to him. She said she's not going home just to end up back here. They kept me for a couple extra days as I looked for a safe place to go. I needed care as I healed, and ultimately I took a taxi home. My son nursed me back to health. Things reached a breaking point during an argument. I told Rodney he couldn't use my car. It was really my son's car that I had access to transportation, that I could go as I wanted to. So Rodney insisted on going everywhere with me, the market, the pharmacy, the hairdresser. He would never let me drive, even when he was drunk. It was less stressful just to stay home. I became more and more isolated, shut off from family, friends, neighbors. Folks would say they would always see him, but never his partner. He lied about me and told them I was crazy and ruined my reputation. Only my next door neighbor was wise to our situation, and she and I had a plan in place that I would knock on her wall and she would call 911 to help me. For years I tried to make it work until I was just too tired. Tired physically, emotionally, and tired of being afraid. When I decided to break things off, I called the Philadelphia domestic hotline, but the shelters and beds were full and not available. I had a restraining order against Rodney. I decided not to stay in my home because I was being harassed by his family. My home had truly become a prison. So I borrowed money and moved into an apartment with my children to escape the abuse. The apartment wasn't much, but when I left that house, I felt like I was free. Today, I am free. Free from Rodney, free from fear that haunted me every day I spent with him. Free from the shame of hiding the secret. My story touches on so many systems, from hospitals, workplaces, to law enforcement and courts, to behavioral health, addiction and treatment providers. It was also highly influenced by neighbors, people living next door to the abuse. If coordinated community response like shared safety had been in place for me, I wouldn't have fallen through the cracks. Maybe if my childhood had been different, if I hadn't been abused as a child and sexually assaulted as a teen, if I had a trusted person to confide in, safe place to go, a teacher, doctor, neighbor, or supervisor had noticed something wasn't quite right and said something or done something, if there had been one caring, supportive voice, maybe then I wouldn't have lived with abuse for so long. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I share with you to help others avoid similar fates. For anyone out there suffering in silence, let me be the voice for you. Listen to me when I tell you it's not your fault. There are resources available to help you break free and build a life of peace. There is hope. I urge all of you listening today to help us bring shared safety to its full potential. Tell the people in your life about this. Be part of the change by joining Shared Safety Subcommittee. Support the work financially and rally with us to protect the well-being, the safety and freedom of our neighbors. Together, we can build a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Shonda. Freedom. Freedom. It's one of the basic things that we all have. And so Shonda's story really sums up the importance that we work together on shared safety so that we can all be free to thrive in this city. It is now my absolute pleasure to present the 2017 Pat Fox Trailblazer Award. Named after former Philadelphia Police Department Deputy Commissioner Patricia Fox, this award honors advocates who exemplify leadership and commitment in the struggle to end domestic violence. This year's honorees, Mayor Jim Kenney, Brian Abernathy, First Deputy Managing Director, and Eva Gladstein, Deputy Managing Director for Health and Human Services, have been instrumental to shared safety success. It was their support in word and in deed that strengthened what began as a grassroots movement and gave it the resources and platform needed to create deep, systemic, and lasting change. From including shared safety's goals in your policy agenda to establishing a first-of-its-kind Director of Domestic Violence Strategies to solidify this work, your commitment has been steadfast. Because of you, the future is brighter for survivors like Shonda and for hundreds of thousands of citizens in this city that will be impacted by domestic violence. Mayor Kenney, Brian, and Eva, we offer you our heartfelt thanks for your leadership in working to create a future free from violence for all. Would you come up?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
I think we get a picture now.
Yep. Thank you very much, Janine. We really appreciate this honor. I'm accepting this award on behalf of Brian and Eva and all those who work in this space. I mean, I get credit for a lot of things, and a lot of the work is being done by these folks here and the people who work with them. We don't work in support of shared safety for recognition, but rather because it's the right thing to do. That's why we work to create a city that raises awareness of how unacceptable domestic violence is, and one where victims are not afraid to speak up. Women Against Abuse have been great partners in our efforts, helping to ensure that our human services agencies are equipped with the best practices to address domestic violence. They have also been essential to working with those who act abusively and helping them find alternatives to this violence. Finding a resolution to this problem is vital to the health of our city and the health of our families. If we are to create a Philadelphia that works for everyone, all of our residents must have a sense of safety and security. We have made a lot of progress in regards to shared safety, but these current times, in these current times, we must work together to completely eradicate the issue. By continuing to make our voices heard and speaking out, we will continue to move in the right direction in this regard. And I just want to say that I consider myself blessed and very lucky to have had two parents who loved each other and treated us and treated each other with respect and decency. I don't know what it's like to grow up in a family other than that, and I want to thank them. They're both still alive today, and I want to thank them both for raising us in that environment. I also want to take an opportunity to recognize Councilwoman Blondell Runners-Brown, Councilman Taubenberger, and Councilman Green, but I want to save my comments for Councilman Greenlee, who has been the absolute out-front advocate for against domestic violence to anyone else in government that I know. And he has continued to bring this to our attention on a regular basis and deserves all the credit for making this in the forefront of policy issues with council and the administration. I also want to say to the last woman who spoke, obviously women are the strongest of the species of humans. To be able to go through what you've been through and to have the joy and dignity that you have. It must be a very, very difficult road. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us, because it's very, very important that people know this. It's just really difficult to think about how women and some men and children have to live in a household and an environment where every day you don't know what's coming next, what fist is flying, what's being thrown at you, how you're being held down, whatever's going to happen to you that day. It's really got to be a stressful situation. So I want to thank Janine and your organization for continuing to protect women, protect people who are in this situation, and let's all work together to help each other out. Thank you.
We wouldn't be here today without our incredible founding sponsor, Verizon, which, as I mentioned, has supported the Women Against Abuse iPledge campaign since its inception 10 years ago now. Verizon has been a champion in the effort to end domestic violence, not only locally, but also nationally, through supporting prevention efforts and providing millions of phones for victims through their Hope Line program. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Douglas Smith, the Vice President of State Government Affairs for Verizon, Pennsylvania.
I'm a hugger. What a beautiful day. And for those of us that have been along with Janine for this 10-year path, and a wonderful path it's been as we celebrate the iPledge Day. The weather today is spectacular, and just last year we remember a cold, rainy day for iPledge, and for years before that we were in Love Park, and the city would dye the fountain purple, and then the wind would blow, and those of us in the first couple rows, well, we became purple too. But we smiled, we celebrated, we were here for a very important reason, and I personally have been thrilled to be part of this organization and sponsoring iPledge for all these years. I'm honored to be here once again on behalf of Verizon, and we're very excited to be with all of you today as well for the 10th time, which is special for us and a demonstration of Verizon's commitment to ending domestic violence. Thank you to Mayor Kenny, members of your cabinet, council members, Women Against Abuse Executive Director and President Janine Lazitsky, and the entire Women Against Abuse staff for championing such an important effort and having us here again today. Thank you, Janine, for your hard work and dedication in putting together another tremendous event and your tireless efforts in this critical campaign each year to improve lives in the Philadelphia area. iPledge has become such an important platform for Women Against Abuse's advocacy and systems change work, rallying the community around the need for increased resources and interventions for people experiencing domestic violence. We at Verizon understand the importance of corporations collaborating with service agencies and government officials. Hope Line by Verizon has existed to work on ending domestic violence since 2001. When we started the program, Hope Line donates mobile phones and service plans to survivors of domestic violence, giving them the means to safely contact their support network and fund organizations nationwide, all while protecting the environment. Since 2001, Verizon has collected almost 13 million cell phones, and in 2016, we distributed more than $8 million in cash grants to domestic violence organizations. Last year alone, we collected over 570,000 cell phones, which we refurbished and donated as critical resources for domestic violence victims. Verizon and its employees have long supported programs to help prevent domestic violence. Together with organizations like Women Against Abuse, we can truly make a difference. So again, thank you for allowing Verizon to be your partner in this important work in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you.
Doug Smith rocking the purple, looking good today. We'll get the fountain working again for you next year. You'll get the purple hair to go along with it. Thank you for your support. Thank you to all of the city officials that have come out today. I noticed District Attorney Kelly Hodge in the audience, thank you for being here. So many council people are here as well. And I want to invite them, as well as the honorees and speakers, to come up on stage with me. And let's take the pledge together. What do you say? I'll be happy to lead you in the pledge in English, and if you will recite with me the lines, then that'll give Christine Nieves a chance to say them in Spanish, and if you recite with her in unison, then we'll get through this pledge together in English and in Spanish. Are you ready?
Buenas tardes. Ahora vamos a tomar el compromiso contra la violencia doméstica en español y en inglés. El señor Bill Henley comenzará en inglés y nosotros continuaremos en español.
All right, in unison now. I pledge
Me comprometo
to take action
a tomar acción
against domestic violence
contra la violencia doméstica
by choosing not to remain silent
y no quedarme en silencio.
Instead, I will speak up
Alzaré mi voz
for those in my neighborhood
en mi comunidad, vecindad,
family, work, or school who are victims of abuse.
familia, trabajo y escuela en nombre de quienes son víctimas del abuso.
I will create a peaceful and safe environment in my home.
Crearé un ambiente de seguridad y paz en mi hogar.
And will not raise my hand in violence.
No alzaré mis manos en violencia,
Nor my voice in anger.
ni mi voz con ira.
By living this pledge,
Al honrar esta promesa,
I am joining with others
me uno a este movimiento
to end violence
para eliminar la violencia
in my home and community.
en mi hogar y en nuestra comunidad.
Thank you for taking the pledge. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting Women Against Abuse for 10 years now, the iPledge event. Janine Lizitsky, thank you so much for having me be a part of this. Be sure to stop by the Verizon mobile pledge station. All those tables lined up. We thank Verizon for their continuing support. Thank you for coming out on this beautiful day and supporting us, and we'll see you again next year. And we'll be here every year until we put an end to domestic violence.